When Maurice Gibb died in 2003, Barry Gibb made a promise. There would be no more Bee Gees, not because the songs had faded, but because the soul of the group was gone. And years later, after losing Robin too, Barry revealed why the Bee Gees could never and would never be the same. The loss that changed everything. January 12, 2003. Barry's phone rang with the kind of news that shatters the world in a single sentence. Maurice was gone. A twisted intestine had led to unexpected complications. He was only 53. There had been no time for a proper goodbye. One moment, Barry had a brother, a bandmate, a lifelong partner in music. The next, there was a silence where Maurice's laugh used to be. Maurice wasn't just the middle Gibb. He was the glue, the one who could calm Barry and Robin when tensions ran high, the one who kept rehearsals light with jokes, the one who could walk into a studio and make any song better with a single bass line or keyboard flourish. His loss ripped a hole in the Bee Gees that no amount of fame, fortune, or fan adoration could fill. In the days that followed, Barry and Robin were approached about continuing under the Bee Gees name. Promoters dangled massive reunion tours, record deals, and tribute specials. But Barry didn't hesitate. There would be no Bee Gees without Maurice. To him, that name wasn't just a brand, it was sacred. The three of them had built it from nothing, singing in the streets of Manchester as kids before moving to Australia and clawing their way onto the charts. Barry later said he couldn't even listen to their songs for months without breaking down. Each harmony, each falsetto line, was a reminder of the voice that would never join in again. Even playing guitar felt different. Maurice had always been there, just off to the side, smiling as if to say, "We've got this." It wasn't just the end of an era, it was the end of a brotherhood that had survived fame, feuds, and the brutal disco backlash. And in Barry's mind, trying to carry on under the same name without Maurice wasn't honoring him, it was betraying him. The weight of the name. In the years after Maurice's passing, Barry found himself walking a tightrope between honoring the past and moving forward. The world wanted more Bee Gees music, but for Barry, the name carried more than decades of hits. It carried the memory of three boys who had sung together in tiny living rooms, dreaming of stages they'd one day conquer. That's why the 2010 release of Mythology was so much more than a greatest hits box set. It was a memorial. Each of the 4 discs was dedicated to one of the brothers, Barry, Robin, Maurice, and Andy, telling their story through the songs they were most connected to. Barry's liner notes cut straight to the heart. They say the future is always brighter if you can let go of the past, but the Bee Gees will live forever in my heart. Those words weren't a marketing copy. They were a confession. To Barry, Bee Gees wasn't a brand that could be reassembled with new parts. It was an unbreakable triangle. Remove one side, and it collapses. Even decades later, Barry still speaks of the name as something living, something that belongs to all 3 brothers equally. It's why, for him, the Bee Gees ended not with a farewell tour, but with Maurice's final breath. Promoters still called, dangling offers that would have sold out arenas in minutes. But Barry refused, explaining that performing under the Bee Gees name without Maurice would be like showing up to a family reunion with an empty chair and pretending nothing was missing. He also understood something the public didn't. Every time he stood on stage under that banner, every time he sang those harmonies alone, he'd feel the absence in a way that was unbearable. Keeping the name retired was his way of keeping it pure, locked in the era where it belonged, untouched by compromise. For Barry, the Bee Gees weren't just music, they were blood. And bloodlines aren't something you rebrand. Robin's passing, the second blow. If losing Maurice was like losing the foundation of a home, losing Robin was like watching the roof collapse. Robin had been fighting cancer for several years, undergoing intense treatment while still making public appearances when he could. By early 2012, fans sensed the worst. His once thin frame became frail, but his wit and distinctive voice never fully left him, at least not until the final weeks. On May 20th, 2012, Robin Gibb passed away at the age of 62. For Barry, it wasn't just the loss of another brother. It was the loss of the only other person alive who had shared every chapter of the Bee Gees' journey, from their early days singing Everly Brothers covers in Australia, to surviving the brutal disco backlash of the late 70s, to the triumphant comeback in the 80s. In interviews after Robin's death, Barry admitted that performing had become almost impossible. "I can't face singing alone," he said. "It's not the same without my brothers." He described stepping on stage and hearing the empty space where Robin's piercing vibrato should have been. It wasn't just a missing note, it was a missing heartbeat. At Robin's funeral, Barry stood before a small crowd and gave one of the most heart-wrenching tributes of his life. He called Robin "my best friend" and confessed that their famous sibling rivalry now seemed so small compared to the decades of music and memories they had shared. The two had famously butted heads over creative decisions, but those disagreements had always been tempered by an unshakable bond. Now, with Maurice gone and Robin gone, Barry was left standing as the last surviving Gibb brother. It was a role he never wanted, one he described as the loneliest feeling in the world. In one candid moment, he admitted, "When you're the last one left, the music becomes ghosts. I'm singing with people who aren't there anymore." That reality made his earlier statement, that the Bee Gees would never be the same, feel even more final. It wasn't just the truth, it was a fact written in loss. Creative reawakening. After Robin's passing, Barry withdrew from the spotlight. Offers to perform poured in, but he turned down most of them. For the first time in his life, music felt more like a wound than a refuge. In interviews, he admitted he could barely pick up a guitar without thinking of the brothers who used to sit beside him, trading riffs and lyrics. For over a decade, Barry had been part of a machine, a creative unit where every song was a collaboration of instinct and shared history. Without Maurice and Robin, writing felt like trying to have a conversation with no one answering back. But slowly, something shifted. In quiet moments at home in Miami, he began playing again. Not to record, not for an audience, but for himself. The melodies were softer, the lyrics more introspective. He realized he wasn't trying to write another Bee Gees hit. He was trying to make sense of his own story. That process eventually became In the Now, his 2016 solo album. It was unlike anything the Bee Gees had done, more personal, more vulnerable. Instead of chasing chart success, Barry wrote songs about love, resilience, and the ghosts he still carried with him. Tracks like End of the Rainbow felt like direct conversations with Maurice and Robin, while others hinted at the quiet gratitude he felt for still being here to sing at all. Performing again was bittersweet. He incorporated Bee Gees classics into his set lists, but each one was laced with a sense of tribute. He often spoke directly to the audience about his brothers, his voice breaking mid-sentence. For Barry, these shows weren't just concerts. They were memorials, celebrations, and therapy all at once. It was clear that while he had found his way back to music, it would never again be the same kind of joy it was when his brothers were alive. The meaning behind? Never the same. Over the years, countless artists and promoters have approached Barry with proposals to bring back the Bee Gees. They offered star-studded tribute tours, hologram performances, and even collaborations with younger singers who could mimic Robin's high vibrato. Each time, Barry gave the same answer: no. It wasn't about pride, it wasn't about money, it was about truth. For Barry, the Bee Gees were not a concept that could be reassembled like a band lineup. They were the living sum of three very different personalities, bound by blood and sharpened by years of struggle. Maurice was the easygoing heart, Robin the eccentric visionary, and Barry the steady captain. Each brought something irreplaceable, and their chemistry wasn't something you could hire or simulate. It was forged through shared childhood bedrooms, endless rehearsals, and surviving the kind of fame that could have easily destroyed them. Barry has often said that even during their creative disagreements, and there were plenty, the bond between them was unbreakable. And it was that bond, more than the music itself, that made the Bee Gees special. Without it, he believed, using the name would feel hollow. He also knew that audiences weren't just coming to hear the songs, they were coming to see the brothers together. To recreate that without Maurice and Robin would feel like showing up to a wedding without the bride and groom. Yes, the music might still sound good, but the soul of the occasion would be missing. In his mind, preserving the Bee Gees' legacy meant letting it rest intact. The records, the videos, the memories, they were complete. Anything added now would feel like rewriting a story that was already finished the right way. For Barry, the phrase "never the same" wasn't a lament. It was a boundary, a way of protecting something sacred. Legacy beyond the stage. Even though Barry retired the Bee Gees name, he never walked away from what the music meant to the world, or to himself. Instead of trying to recreate the band, he shifted his focus to celebrating its legacy in ways that felt genuine and true. One of the most visible tributes came in 2010 with the Mythology box set, which honored each brother individually. But Barry's most powerful tributes have often been live performances, where he shares the stage with no one, except the memory of Maurice and Robin. At some shows, he's had their recorded harmonies woven into the mix so that audiences can hear all three brothers singing together one more time. In those moments, you can see Barry pause, close his eyes, and let the memories wash over him. Offstage, Barry has worked to ensure the Bee Gees' catalog remains accessible to new audiences. Songs like Stayin' Alive and Night Fever still dominate wedding playlists and movie soundtracks, but younger listeners have also been discovering the group's deep cuts through streaming platforms. Barry has embraced that, often remarking in interviews how surreal it is to see teenagers singing along to songs recorded decades before they were born. In 2020, the documentary, The Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, brought their story to a whole new generation. Barry appeared in it not as a rock star, but as a man reflecting on a life filled with both unimaginable success and irreplaceable loss. His candid moments, laughing over old tour stories one minute, choking back tears the next, reminded viewers that behind the glitter and gold records was a family. He's also been open about the healing power of the fans. After Maurice and Robin passed, it was the letters, the messages, and the crowds singing along at his solo shows that gave him the strength to keep performing. "When I'm on stage and people are singing with me," he once said, "it's like they're helping me carry my brothers with me." For Barry, the Bee Gees' legacy isn't just in the records or awards. It's in the way their music has woven itself into people's lives. Every couple dancing to How Deep Is Your Love, every road trip soundtracked by Jive Talkin', every moment when someone presses play and hears that unmistakable harmony. It keeps the brothers alive, even if the band itself is gone. And maybe that's the quiet comfort for Barry, that while the Bee Gees will never be the same, they will also never truly disappear. When Barry Gibb says the Bee Gees will never be the same, it's not about loss, it's about loyalty. He chose to protect the bond he shared with Maurice and Robin, knowing it could never be recreated. The Bee Gees may be gone as a band, but their music and their brotherhood still live in every note. So the next time you hear one of their songs, remember, for those few minutes, the brothers are together again, forever in harmony. If you felt that, don't stop here. Hit subscribe and keep exploring the untold stories of music legends, only on Backstage Melody.